Hello, dear listener. Please subscribe to your channel. Enjoy watching. Today, I want to share a very wonderful story with you. This story is about betrayal, karma, and true love. She sat on the train for the second hour already. A man was waiting for her on the platform. Catching sight of him through the window, pressing her palm against the cold glass, she anticipated the same from him, and he, sensing her desire. But something happened in the carriage. Maybe someone was killed or something was stolen. Nellie wasn't very interested in that. Her interest lay outside the window, and the young woman's heart was yearning for it with all its might. Finally, a police officer approached her compartment. "Good day, madam, your documents, please." She opened her bag and started taking out her documents. The officer noticed that her hands were trembling. "Why are you so nervous?" The law enforcer asked, keenly studying her face. I'm already very tired. I want to drink. My fiancé has been waiting for me on the platform for 2 hours, and you're asking why my hands are shaking. That's why they're shaking. Nellie finished handing her documents to the police officer. A woman entered the compartment, a policewoman, and addressed the high-ranking officer. "We'll conduct a search." "What do you mean?" the male officer asked, surprised. "Correctly, we'll take off her clothes and search her," the policewoman said absolutely calmly. "Are you out of your mind?" the woman shouted in response to the proposal. "Why are you shouting?" It makes one ponder a lot. "About what?" "I've been sitting here for 2 hours in this stuffiness, waiting for someone to offer me a bottle of water at least." She started taking off her jacket, her light blouse. "Should I take off my stockings and skirt?" The question was directed at the male police officer. "Oh, that's not necessary. Excuse us. But you also understand valuables have been stolen and a woman has been killed. We suspect everyone. Please don't be offended. Open your suitcase again, and you'll be free." She opened the suitcase, and the policewoman thoroughly examined everything, then let her go. Jumping onto the platform and embracing her man, they walked to the car. "It's strange. They haven't seen each other. He waited for her so long, and they didn't even kiss," said the policewoman. "Well, everything went well," the man asked. "Well, almost gave myself away when they decided to search me. But thank God they decided not to do it." The police officer turned out to be too modest. "Where did you hide them?" did Serge ask. "We're in my underwear. It's easier to say in my panties. Tied them to my belt and the little bag is hanging between my legs," and without embarrassment, she pulled up her skirt. She pulled up her skirt to show where the valuables were. "Your imagination knows no bounds, but my patience does have a limit. You said this would be the last job, but it turns out there will be more assignments. But Nellie, before we let you go, we must find a replacement for you, even a small one. But someone with the same skill and intellect. Sometimes I feel like you're not looking at all. You're perfectly fine with me always yielding to you." "No, Nellie, we are looking. But replacing you will be very difficult. You're a very talented woman, and there are very few like you. You do everything beautifully, whether it's killing or stealing. What you do should be showcased in the highest educational institutions. It's an art. Well, okay, don't overdo it. Otherwise, I might get conceited and ask for a higher percentage. That's unlikely. You're already paid more than anyone. But I do the most challenging tasks. You only trust them to me. You're getting on my nerves. I just want to live quietly and honestly, if possible. After these words about honesty, Serge burst out laughing like a horse. I beg you, spare me the talk of honesty. When I hear those words from you, I fear for humanity. Fine, let's go to the boss. I'll hand everything over and I'll relax. Let me hand it over and I'll drive you home. You're treating me like a fool. I've done everything and I'll hand over the job. And you boast about your results. Or do you not have any? Don't get too full of yourself, dear. You work well, but others also earn their bread. Yet for the rest of the journey, they traveled in silence. Isati Nelly dozed off a bit, because when you have over $1 million in your underwear, sleep becomes secondary. First were shot, hands were shaking. She had duped its woman both in a restaurant and in the compartment until she lost consciousness. She didn't want to kill her. She opened her eyes too soon and received a blow to the head as a result. But everything was behind her now. Up now to rest, to sleep for at least a week, and let everything burn in blue flames. Of course, Ellie wasn't born a thief or a killer. She was always a cheerful and very sociable girl, but extremely jealous. She fell in love in kindergarten, then in school, and at 18, true love came to her. Simply insane love. Can any other love come at that age? They were the same age, or he was a year older. He's a handsome guy, not afraid of anything, getting into the most adventurous stories. Girls were crazy about him, and he took advantage of it without any conscience. They met Nellie on Christmas. He brought her into the company as his girlfriend. But before that, they had already slept together. They felt a connection, so Nellie immediately put her hand on his shoulder, letting him know he was her boyfriend. However, Jimmy had a different view, which is why he danced the first dance with a lanky girl, constantly touching her backside. Apparently, she liked it, and they quickly disappeared into one of the rooms. The girl was boiling inside, but she held herself back. Since the company was unfamiliar to her, she didn't establish her rules as a newcomer. After their private moment, he remembered his girlfriend. He invited her to the table, poured champagne, and then they kissed for a long time. No one paid them any attention. Everyone was occupied with their own affairs. Then Jimmy invited the hostess of the apartment to dance, and while they danced, he explored the girl's body with his free hand. At this point, Nellie couldn't take it any longer and slapped Jimmy. He retaliated, and they might have exchanged punches if they hadn't been stopped, reminding them that Christmas was approaching. But the woman was drinking heavily, and in the morning, upon waking up, she found a blood-stained knife in her hand and Jimmy next to her. There was no one in the apartment. She dropped the knife, got dressed, and escaped from the place as far as possible. She hid in the basements for a week. Her portrait was hanging on every lamppost. Wanted, dangerous criminal. She didn't know what to do because she couldn't remember anything. Just the guys from the company she had stayed with for the last 6 years helped her. Pintanaji, male, she was 24, a professional thief and killer. But she knew for sure that she couldn't have killed Jimmy. She was framed, and all these years, she tried to figure out who could have done it. But since she didn't know anyone from that company, no one was willing to tell her anything. She was also afraid to open up to them. They all wanted Jimmy, and this unwanted girl was of no interest to anyone. Someone killed him, and they planted the knife in her hand because she was drunk and couldn't protest. Just in return for being saved from prison, she had to work for 5 years. Now it had been another year, and they were still looking for a replacement for her. An old thief taught her everything. He showed her all the intricacies and subtleties of this difficult craft, sometimes even in practice. Everything he did was elegant, beautiful, a pleasure to watch. He could snatch a wallet from a bag, lingering just a few seconds next to a woman and calmly walk away. He shared all of this with his apprentice. You must always look impeccable. People should only notice you as a beautiful and well-groomed woman, not as a thief. You mustn't arouse suspicion in anyone. Never hurry. To carry yourself with dignity so that people not only open their mouths, but also their bags when they see you. Unfortunately, with our profession, you'll have to forget about personal life unless you find a suitor from our profession. Unless you find a suitor from our profession. Otherwise, you won't succeed. Remember that, little one. The Greek praised her to the boss, saying he had never had such a capable apprentice before. She was beautiful, had nimble hands, and was born to deceive suckers. Little one, she'll do that effortlessly, he reported to the boss. The Greek and Nellie had a special bond, like a father and daughter, despite her being about 20 years younger. They would have made a great team if the mentor were 20 years younger. But she was also tired. Fatigue is a bad helper and advisor. She showed the boss how her hands trembled and how it could end badly. After the last job with the diamonds, no longer a little one, she decided to seriously discuss retirement or a long break. Thought that would be tomorrow today. She was resting in a warm bath, thinking about nothing. The next day, Nellie went to the boss to discuss her future. "Well, dear, I'm glad to see you. Come in. You look so serious. I feel that our conversation won't be easy. But first, 20 drops of your favorite cognac. No fried. I won't. I really need to talk to you, and it'll be difficult for you. I understand you're going to ask for leniency. Call it my release. Whatever you want, just let me go. I fulfilled our agreement completely, even more so. Technically, I should have been on a pension, basking my tired body on white sand, somewhere in a hot country for a year. You know what a heat-loving person I am. But you understand, he didn't let her finish her sentence. And without any conditions, whether I remember or not, release me. if Greg were alive, he would stand up for me. Because what you're doing now, it's called treachery. Nellie girl, let's avoid strong words. I know you worked honestly and honorably for a full 6 years. You fulfilled your contract. I admit it, but you have to understand. Again, she didn't let him finish. You're not listening to me, so I'm just leaving and you have no right to keep me. The chance Cajun. I'd understood that she was right, and he had no leverage to pressure her. But the job he wanted to pull off could only be done by her. No one else could charm that gentleman like she could. He knew she would appeal to him. Well, a woman with those qualities couldn't not be appealing to a single man. And he tried to convey this to her. However, she seemed truly exhausted. Fred had never seen her so defiant. Wait, Nellie, what if I give you a chance to rest, say for 3 months? You'll lie on the beach, get some sun, relax. And then you'll come back, complete one last job, and I swear on my mother's name. And I'll let you go with a good sum, and I'll never bother you again. Trust me, girl. Why did she always give in to his persuasions every time she stepped over the threshold of his office? Perhaps she remembered how he was the only one, many years ago, who stood up for her and helped that frightened and dirty creature sitting at. The creature sat in the basement with the rats for a week. He used to take care of her, take her shopping, dress her up, feed her and stop her whenever she started stuffing food into her mouth. Be careful, little one. You've been hungry for so long, and stuffing yourself like this is dangerous. Don't worry, there will be food again tomorrow, delicious food, and you'll finally fill up. She remembered all of this. No one else had ever cared for her like that. She didn't even know her father. When rumors reached her mother that he'd been killed, she couldn't bear that grief. At first, she drank in secret, and then, along with her friends, she drank heavily, and at 16, Deli was left alone. She grew up like a roadside weed, so the attention from Fred pleased her. She felt protected. Of course, he did all of this altruistically. Even then, he had his eye on her. Not on her as a woman, but as a good worker who'd bring him a lot of money. And he was right about her. She became a professional in her field. At first, she enjoyed it. Like the rush, the adrenaline. She had always loved the most dangerous things since childhood. Roller coasters that her peers couldn't lure her onto were her favorite entertainment. Jumping into the cabin, her heart would race in anticipation of speed and something unknown. But it always attracted her, so she took on the riskiest operations involving diamonds and killings. All right, vent, predation, and election. I won't even ask what this job is for now, because I'm tired. You see how my hands are shaking? She extended her arms, showing how her fingers weren't obeying her. And Greg used to tell me that this is my main tool. It's nerves. Fred. There's so much adrenaline in me that it's overflowing. Action, I'll leave today, but I'll be back in 3 months and finish my last job. We'll make a contract that you won't dare break. She sent him an air kiss and left to continue her vacation. Nellie returned after a 3-month break, tanned and ready to work. "Come in, dear. Have a seat. The case is interesting, but tough. You need to make this man fall in love with you." At least from the photo, a handsome man in his 40s with black hair and matching eyes gazed at her. A strong chin spoke of the man's challenging character. Such a straight nose and beautiful lips completed the image of a handsome man. "He needs to trust you. Find out the safe code where the money and jewelry are kept. Where do you even know about the jewelry? Does he have any or not? What do you know about him in general? Tell me everything in detail. Darling, we practically know nothing about him, but we know for sure that he's wealthy. Fred, do you know why I haven't had a single failure in 6 years? Because you're smart and beautiful. Well, that too, of course. But the main thing is that I practically knew everything about everyone from whom I intended to take money or life. I knew their weaknesses and strengths. That's why Greg always told me that you have to know the target inside out. Just an inside out. And you're telling me that you know nothing about him, yet the job is very difficult. No, my dears. I can't carry out an assignment like that. All right, what would you like to know about him? Everything? When was he born? Who were his parents? Whether he loved his mother or father more? Was he married? What school did he attend? Which university? Do you get it? Because only then will I go and do this job. Once you find out everything, give me a call." And she left to continue her rest. You know, she's right. We're sending her on a job that's bound to fail. Greg really was a good teacher. It's a shame about the old man. He could have done so much more. And after summoning his assistants, gave them specific instructions. It turned out that it wasn't easy to find information about this person. He didn't appear often at crowded events, but those specialists were skilled, and they worked diligently. They even found out which restaurant was our protagonist's favorite the days he visited there, and his preferred dishes. Having put all the information on paper, they handed the document to Nellie. "Now, this is a different story," she said. She needed another week to study everything thoroughly and prepare. At exactly 9 p.m., Nellie walked into the restaurant. Henry had already been there for an hour. She wore a blue dress. It's Henry's favorite color, a blue necklace, and matching earrings. Her shoes matched the accessories. A small purse completed the ensemble. Following Greg's teachings, she walked by Henry without hurrying, even though he noticed her immediately. He resisted the urge to turn after her, though he really wanted to. She sat at the table and ordered seafood. When the waiter walked away from her, she shouted, "Don't forget the mussels." I adore them, even though she couldn't stand mussels. Just the thought of them made her nauseous. Of course, the attentive waiter replied and quickly went to fulfill the order. Jason Rai loved mussels, and he, sitting across the table from her, heard that. What an elegant woman. I don't know her at all, yet we already have so much in common. But the beautiful dress color, the perfectly matched accessories, and the seafood that I love, she loves too, thought the man as he finished his dinner. After leaving a large bill on the table, he left the restaurant. She didn't touch the mussels, but she ate all the other seafood, drank a glass of good wine, left a tip, and exited the restaurant. As she approached her car, she saw a man walking towards her. Nellie recognized him as the restaurant guest. However, she intentionally got into her car quickly and drove away. The next time he saw her in the restaurant, he immediately invited her. At tuwek and supporting sa may I introduce myself? My not. I'm Nellie. My name is Henry. What will you be drinking? A glass of red dry wine and seafood. Mussels, too. No, thank you. I had a lot of them last time. I won't want them for a while. She said this on purpose to avoid his persistence about the mussels. Isanui really wanted to invite her to dance, but he wondered if it would be appropriate. He didn't really know her yet, but Nellie was reading his thoughts and beat him to it. How about we dance? He was genuinely thrilled, and in his excitement, he got up from his chair so abruptly that he knocked it over. Sorry, I'm so clumsy. Oh, come on, it happens. Etcher, as soon as he put his hand on her waist and caught a whiff of her delicate perfume, he started thinking of her as a woman. She sensed that, and as he pulled her close, she felt his firm, masculine hand. When they left the restaurant, it was well past midnight. Would you like to go in my car? Are you in such a hurry to find out where I live? He was embarrassed that she had quickly seen through his ploy. Well, why not? With pleasure. Nellie felt his smile and his gaze on her. Her cheeks suddenly reddened and she was surprised by her own ability to blush. And for a whole week, Ellie didn't see Henry. She still came to the restaurant, but her new acquaintance seemed to have vanished. She began to worry that she had failed the mission, but unexpectedly, they bumped into each other near her home. Taken by surprise, the girl momentarily lost her composure but quickly regained it. Nice to see you. You disappeared and I thought you might be sick, and there's nothing I can do to help. No, don't worry. I'm fine. It's Wang. Where do you work, if it's not a secret? That's really not interesting at all, especially for such a beautiful girl like you. Please thank you for the compliment, of course, but you managed to avoid the answer quite elegantly. Outtaken. In her mind, she noted that she needed to find out from Fred where this gentleman worked. Just the relationship between these two wasn't progressing as quickly as her friends would have expected. A month had passed, and Henry hadn't invited her to his place yet. They led an active lifestyle. They attended social events, concerts, and youthful gatherings. She always looked impeccable, and many asked, "Where did you find such a gem?" He would just smile sweetly and remain silent. Strangely, she felt easily flustered around him, thinking she couldn't sustain any conversation. She felt her education was lacking. This was new to her, and it was nothing like what she had experienced before. Henry noticed this too, and in order not to embarrass her, he waited for her to set the tone for the conversation, which he easily followed. But in his gaze toward Nellie, there was tenderness, and his gentle touches and kisses indicated his desire to possess her. Yet the man had remarkable self-control, which earned her respect. They became friends before lovers, and Nellie was okay with that. He informed her that they couldn't find out where he worked. Sorry, kid, no matter how hard my guys tried to find this information, nothing worked out. But we did learn that his grandfather or great-grandfather owned gold mines, and that all transferred to him. That's why he's fabulously rich. I think he might be a lawyer or something. They earn well. They always get expensive gifts. Anyway, figure it out for yourself. We can't help with that. She didn't like that. As rules were being broken again, the rules Greg had taught her. But then only now did she understand how right he was about the importance of having information about the client. It was 50 of success. And Nellie didn't know the main thing, what her man did for a living. 2 months had passed, and there was still no result. Ed was getting nervous, but there was nothing Nellie could do. Tell me, is anything changing since you two met? In Strap, is anything progressing? Don't rush me. Under first. the can't that usually I'm getting nervous too, and I don't know why he's delaying inviting me to his place. I can see that he's interested in me. I can feel that he desires me, but he's holding back like a steadfast tin soldier. Focus on other things. Why are all of you waiting for me, as if I'm the only one working in this place? Look at all those loafers sitting around. If they have nothing to do, well then let them give me their salaries. But Henry wasn't idle. He officially didn't work anywhere. He was too wealthy for that. At first, he inherited from his paternal grandparents. And his great-grandfather, also on his father's side, owned gold mines. Initially, they didn't yield any income, only losses. Just for the workers demanded money for their hard work, even though they weren't producing anything. Everything changed by chance. One worker, after an argument with everyone, left to avoid getting into a fight again and to escape a reprimand from the boss. After 3 days, no one saw him at all. The owner and the team got worried, but after 3 days, he reappeared with a small pile of gold. It's entirely possible he had washed more and kept his findings hidden, but mentally the owner parted with that gold, giving it as a reward to the insolent worker for discovering a profitable site. They worked there for about a year, washing gold incessantly. That's how his great-grandfather became rich, and he passed it all down to his son. That was a good foundation to start his own business, and eventually, all of it ended up in Henry's pockets. He was fabulously wealthy, lived a life of pleasure, and thought only about starting a family and having heirs. He wasn't wasteful, managed his resources skillfully, and utilized his good education and connections. Even as a child, he loved Conan Doyle and devoured Sherlock Holmes. His father approved and advised him to go to law school. His father saw his analytical mind, which he applied successfully using deductive reasoning to draw conclusions from general to specific. He graduated from the university and could work as a lawyer. He did so for a while, but grew bored with the work and left it. He had friends in the police, and Henry helped them by working as an informant entirely for his own enjoyment. As he put it, Just when he saw Nellie for the first time, her face seemed familiar. And when he got to know her better, he stopped doubting that this was the same girl who had stabbed a guy at a drunken gathering 6 years ago. They never found her then, but today he could say with certainty that it was her. The police gave him a leaflet with her face on it. That's how all the lampposts were covered. Comparing the two photographs, 6 years apart, he could confidently claim that Nellie and this girl were the same face, and a few high-profile robberies and murders indicated her involvement. Witnesses identified specific facial features which together formed a real picture, but he had to verify this himself. It's in truth, he didn't want to turn her in. He was attracted to her, but he needed to confirm his suspicions. And Henry invited Nellie to his home. Thanks for the invitation, but is it convenient? If I'm inviting you, it means it's convenient. All right, I'll drive my car so you don't have to drive me back later. You're depriving me of the pleasure of spending more time with you. I'm just concerned about your comfort. Please do as you please. Ellie was driving to Henry for about 40 minutes. His house was outside the city. The road was flanked by a forest on both sides, and the air was noticeably different from that of the city. He's inhaling the scents of the forest. She noted how long it had been since she'd been out in nature, and the fact that Henry lived outside the city appealed to her. When she saw his house, she was speechless. It was a huge mansion with a splendid pool in front. Does he really live alone in this house? She thought. And reading her thoughts, the man immediately said, "This is my parents' house. When we all lived here, many relatives and friends of my parents would come over. But after their deaths, the house was left empty. At first, friends and relatives would come, but that happened less and less frequently, and now I live here alone with the staff. I had a chef who cooks better than anyone in the world, 2 women who clean this huge house, and a gardener, a big fan of flowers and shrubs. He knows everything about them. Under his care, everything blooms. Your place is very beautiful, like a fairy tale. I have a large apartment, and until today, I thought it was quite nice, but compared to your house, it's just a hovel. Buy yourself a house like this. By the way, where do you work? That's not interesting at all, especially for a handsome man like you. You have a good memory. Is that what it's called now? Better I would call it mutual politeness rather than holding a grudge. Wouldn't you agree? Bane, Mr. Henry? I won't argue with a woman, especially since I know it leads to no good. Do you have rich experience? Not rich, but I have some. Come on, I'll show you my house. Inside, it was even more beautiful. It's in rich upholstery on the furniture, carpets, unusual floor vases with live flowers. All of this made the house cozy and inviting. This is where the staff lives, and this is my dining room. A large room with a rectangular table that could easily accommodate 20 or even 25 people, cabinets with beautiful dishes, and flowers. Very beautiful, Nellie sincerely remarked. This is the living room where my friends and acquaintances gather sometimes. Upstairs are the bedrooms, mine, and 3 for guests. "This is my office. Come in." An enormous safe immediately caught her eye. But it was designed to resemble furniture, but Nellie had worked with such safes before. Just in the office, there were shelves full of books, a huge writing desk with perfect order, and again flowers. Beautiful curtains were drawn, and sunlight filled the room. "Please have a seat," the host kindly offered. Nellie suddenly tensed. Why is he receiving me in his office? It would be more natural in the living room where he meets with friends. And when he approached the safe and began entering the code in front of her, she grew anxious because she realized that he had figured her out. He knows who I am. He knows more about me than it seems. He knows about my past. Who is he? Why do I know so little about him? He deliberately began entering the safe code in front of me, most likely a fake one. He wanted to see my reaction, but I won't give him that satisfaction. "You want to play cat and mouse? All right then." Her mood soured, and to his surprise, she said she was leaving. "Ali, did I offend you? Why are you leaving so suddenly? Why are you leaving so quickly?" She looked into his eyes boldly and unflinchingly, becoming even more convinced of her suspicions. "He knows everything about me. I need to go home. Don't follow me. I'll find my way." She hurried toward the exit, fearing she might suffocate in that house. It was no longer cozy or inviting to her. If you enjoyed this story, please like and leave a comment. It's important for us and will help promote this video.